Day 2 of the Interpol Regional Conference in Cape Town has placed the spotlight on global financial crimes and the sophisticated tools being used to combat them, and a panel discussion on the prevention and response to terrorist incidents in Africa. According to a recent Interpol report, online scams, particularly through phishing, were the most frequently reported cybercrimes in Africa, while ransomware, business email, compromise and digital extortions also remain widespread cybercrime. Investigator and forensics scientist at TCG Forensics, Craig Pederson, joins me now for more. Craig, surely we've all gotten smarter over the years, can see a phishing email from a mile away. Why are so many of us still falling victim?
Oliver, I'd love to say that we have wised up as consumers and that we've tightened that net, but the reality is that we just haven't. Cybercrime morphs over time. It's responsive to different technologies. We've seen some really great AI-based adaptations of phishing mails that just help these guys slip through the net every time. It is concerning, and it's ongoing, and it's definitely growing.
Well, we have new technological solutions, new but not so new. Two-factor, sometimes three-factor authentication, making sure that you are who you are and who you say you are. Operating, for instance, your bank would not allow you to operate your cell phone banking or your online banking from a device that they don't recognize. And all of these sorts of things are really important. Yet somehow, despite the burden we place on operators to improve the security of their platforms, it seems as though consumers aren't getting smarter. What causes the gap, and how do we close the gap?
I think a lot of the failure, and if you were to do a gap analysis on it, what you're going to find is that while the banks are advancing in technology, the internet service providers are advancing in technology, the problem is that we're facing two different dynamics. At the top, we have syndicated organized crime structures that are really at the top of their game and know how to bypass a lot of these mechanisms. And at the bottom, we've got a really large, broad consumer base that is not as tech savvy as they should be. Exactly as you say, nobody should be using any form of email without a minimum of two-factor authentication. And yet, we see it time and again that they are. And this indeed facilitates business email compromise, or invoice interception, rampant phishing scams, hijacking of cryptocurrency wallets, and the amounts grow bigger and bigger over time, and the losses keep growing up with them. We're seeing at the moment that the average loss incurred on business email compromise is between 100 and 600,000 Rand, and it's brisk, it's active, and it's syndicated in and around South Africa.
Yeah, cybercrime seemingly has become incredibly transnational. Does that make it a lot more complex and complicated to combat?
Oh, absolutely. You know, the typical dynamic and the complexity is you have a victim in Cape Town, a suspect that's in Malaysia, and the money has moved through two bank accounts, one in Johannesburg and one in Zambia. You've got four different jurisdictions to work with and to get cooperation from, and to try and facilitate that process and the investigation that's needed. And that is where entities like Interpol obviously come in to bridge the gap and channel information between the different parties and the member states, and to channel education between the member states, and to set standards of where member countries should be in terms of investigative capacity and the way that they interface with other role players like Google, Meta, the different cryptocurrency exchanges, in order to facilitate the exchange of information. And we've seen some good advances on the law enforcement front, where law enforcement has started to build out better communication with those role players, and they're starting to engage a little bit more and to structure their communication. It's not where it's going to be yet. It's still a long way to go. And I think we also need to see more activity in the courts. We need specialized cybercrime courts in South Africa. We're beyond the point of ignoring it. It's not going to go away. We need courts that are dedicated to this function
Before we even
as
get
much
to
as we have commercial courts.
Yeah, Craig, before we even get to the courts where the prosecutorial aptitude is being tested there, do we have the forensics capabilities at an investigative level?
In the private sector, yes, we do. There's still a lot of opportunities. We're still a bit stretched, if you will, in the private sector. In the state sector, we have some terrific resources. We really do. We have some brilliant people, but they're a drop in the ocean. There are too few of them. We see too many victims coming to us saying that they've gone to the police to report a cybercrime, and the charge of staff don't know how to deal with it, and they've referred them away. Or they don't want to take the complaint because they think it's a civil matter, and those cases just become rejected. So we see an enormous, like really enormous amount of underreporting of cybercrimes.
Does cybercrime remain indiscriminate about its victim of choice, or is there a specific profile about who's most likely to fall victim?
No, it still remains indiscriminate. When you look at crimes like sextortion, we find victims that are in their teens all the way through to mature adults. When you look at invoice interception, obviously there's a profiling, and syndicates tend to go for specific sectors, the property sector, large corporate entities, and the SME sector in particular, because they don't always have the knowledge in the SME sector of how to combat those attempts or an understanding of how business email compromise actually happens.
Yeah, Craig, thank you so much for your time and your insights. I really do appreciate it. Craig is an investigator and forensic scientist at TCG Forensics, talking to us there on the latest developments and discussions playing out in cybercrime following a gathering taking place in the mother city.